Welcome back, everyone, to Podcast Center. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating and thought-provoking topic: how our heritage shapes and influences intelligence. Sounds intriguing, right?
Absolutely, Marco. Have you ever wondered how the culture, traditions, and values we inherit impact the way we think, solve problems, or even approach challenges? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today.
And here's the twist: while we're uncovering this relationship between heritage and intelligence, we'll also sprinkle in some English learning tips for all our listeners. Expect new vocabulary, phrases, and even some grammar insights to sharpen your language skills.
That's right. By the end of this podcast, you'll not only gain a deeper understanding of how heritage plays into cognitive abilities, but also walk away with practical English expressions to make your conversations sound smarter and more fluent.
For example, ever heard of terms like cultural imprint, cognitive flexibility, or adaptive thinking? We'll break those down as we go, so whether you're here for the knowledge, the language tips, or both, you're in for a treat.
So, grab your headphones, your notepad, or even just your curiosity, and let's unravel the connection between heritage and intelligence. Ready, Marco?
Always ready, Katharina. Let's get started. Alright, Katharina, let's kick this off with the basics. How do you think heritage connects to intelligence? It's not exactly something people talk about every day.
True, but it's actually fascinating. Heritage, our traditions, culture, and upbringing provides the foundation for how we think. For example, in some cultures, critical thinking is encouraged from a young age, while in others, obedience and respect for authority are prioritized. Both shape intelligence differently.
That's so true. And for our listeners, here's an English phrase for you: laying the groundwork. It means setting the foundation for something, just like heritage lays the groundwork for cognitive abilities.
Great phrase, Marco. And it's not just about traditions or values. Think about the skills passed down through generations. A family of musicians, for example, might naturally nurture creativity and auditory intelligence.
Absolutely. And here's another point: language itself is a part of heritage. Did you know that the structure of your native language can influence how you process information? For instance, languages with gendered nouns can even affect how people perceive objects.
Yes, that's called linguistic relativity. And for English learners, here's a related vocabulary tip. When you want to describe how something influences your thinking, you can say it shapes your perspective. For example, growing up in a bilingual household shaped my perspective on communication.
Brilliant tip, Katharina. And here's something else to consider. Certain cultures emphasize collective thinking, like in many Asian societies, where teamwork and group harmony are central. That's different from more individualistic cultures that promote self-reliance.
Exactly. And here's the cool part: both approaches build intelligence, but in different ways. Collective thinking fosters collaboration and problem-solving in groups, while individualism might encourage innovation and risk-taking.
That's a great balance. And speaking of balance, let's throw in another English phrase: strike a balance. It means finding a middle ground between two extremes. For example, it's important to strike a balance between tradition and modern thinking.
Nice one. And you know, Marco, even something as simple as food traditions can play a role. A diet rich in certain nutrients, which may be part of cultural heritage, can actually enhance cognitive development in children.
That's so interesting. It shows how heritage isn't just about abstract ideas, it's physical too. And while we're at it, listeners, here's a quick grammar tip. When talking about traditions or practices, you can use the phrase handed down through generations. For example, this technique was handed down through generations of artisans.
Love it! And it's not just about what's handed down, it's also about how adaptable people are. Some cultures encourage constant learning and adaptability, which enhances something called cognitive flexibility. That's the ability to switch between different ways of thinking.
Great point. And for learners, cognitive flexibility is a fantastic term to describe being mentally agile. You could say, learning a new language improved my cognitive flexibility. And on that note, being multilingual itself is a heritage-driven boost to intelligence.
Absolutely. Multilingualism not only improves memory but also enhances problem-solving skills. It's like a superpower passed down from families who prioritize learning multiple languages.
Heritage really is a powerful influence, isn't it? It shapes not only how we think but also what we value. And those values, in turn, influence the choices we make and the paths we take in life.
Couldn't agree more. Heritage is like a hidden roadmap guiding us, sometimes subtly, sometimes obviously, but always there.
Speaking of values, don't you think they also influence how we measure intelligence?
Oh, definitely. What's seen as intelligent varies by culture. Some value academic knowledge, others practical problem solving.
Exactly. Like in rural areas, intelligence might mean knowing how to farm efficiently or navigate nature.
While in urban areas, it's often tied to technology or innovation. It's all about context.
And here's a quick phrase for learners: context matters. It's a handy way to emphasize how surroundings shape outcomes.
Great tip! And let's not forget storytelling. Many cultures pass down wisdom through stories, teaching critical thinking and morals.
True. That's oral tradition in action. For listeners, the term oral tradition refers to passing information by word of mouth.
Exactly. And it's amazing how those stories shape problem-solving skills, especially in children.
And they also preserve language, don't they? Storytelling keeps endangered languages alive.
Yes, and it's a reminder that heritage isn't static, it evolves with every generation.
Right. It adapts while keeping its roots. Kind of like a tree growing taller but staying grounded.
That's a great metaphor, Marco, and it shows how heritage builds both individual and collective intelligence.
Agreed. It's like a toolkit passed down, helping us navigate life's challenges.
Speaking of a toolkit, don't you think traditions also teach resilience? Like facing challenges with a mindset shaped by heritage?
Absolutely. Think about proverbs or sayings, many cultures have them, and they teach life lessons in just a few words.
Yes, like fall 7 times, stand up 8. It's a Japanese proverb that's all about perseverance.
And here's a tip for learners: proverbs are a great way to adapt to your English. They make you sound more natural and insightful.
True. Plus, they're easy to remember and often relatable across cultures.
Another way heritage builds intelligence is through rituals. Some promote focus, like meditation or mindfulness practices.
Oh, for sure. And those rituals aren't just spiritual, they have cognitive benefits, like improving concentration.
Exactly. It's fascinating how something as simple as a daily ritual can impact how we think and learn.
And let's not forget collaboration. In many cultures, heritage emphasizes community, which strengthens emotional intelligence.
Good point. Emotional intelligence is just as important as academic intelligence. Knowing how to connect with people is a skill in itself.
Right. And it's often learned through heritage, things like family dynamics, celebrations, and community roles.
Speaking of celebrations, don't they also teach planning and organization? Think about festivals, they're like a project management course.
That's true. Preparing for festivals involves teamwork, budgeting, and time management, all valuable skills.
And for listeners, here's a quick phrase: learn by doing. It's perfect for describing how we gain skills through hands-on experience.
Heritage really is a natural classroom, isn't it? It teaches us through practice, not just theory.
Exactly. It's like an ongoing lesson that shapes intelligence in ways we don't always notice.
And you know what's interesting? Even games tied to heritage can build intelligence, like traditional strategy games, think chess or Go.
Oh, definitely. They enhance critical thinking, planning, and even patience. Plus, they've been part of cultural heritage for centuries.
Right. And some traditional outdoor games build physical intelligence to coordination, reflexes, and teamwork.
True. And for our English learners, here's a phrase for you: sharpen your skills. It means to improve or refine abilities, like, playing chess helped me sharpen my strategic thinking.
Great one, Marco. And speaking of sharpening skills, let's talk about storytelling again. It's not just about tradition, it's also a tool for developing language and imagination.
Absolutely. Storytelling boosts vocabulary, creativity, and even empathy. It's like a mental workout.
And it's so versatile. From bedtime stories to folktales, they connect us to our past while teaching us how to think and feel.
Which reminds me, heritage also plays a role in artistic intelligence. Things like music, painting, and dance are all shaped by cultural traditions.
Yes, and they teach expression, which is a form of intelligence often overlooked. It's amazing how heritage influences creativity.
And here's another English tip: when talking about artistic expression, you can use the phrase a creative outlet. For example, painting has always been a creative outlet for me.
Love that! And don't forget, heritage can also challenge us to think critically, like questioning why certain traditions exist or how they've evolved.
Great point. That's where intelligence and heritage intersect, using what we've learned to question, adapt, and grow.
It's all about balance, right? Preserving the best parts of heritage while allowing space for change and new ideas.
Exactly. And that's what makes it such a rich and dynamic influence on intelligence.
And it's not just about traditions we follow. Heritage also teaches us lessons from history. The struggles and successes of our ancestors shape how we view resilience and innovation.
Absolutely. History is like a giant case study for intelligence. It shows us what worked, what didn't, and why. It's like having a guidebook for problem solving.
Right. And it's not just about the big events. Even personal family stories like how grandparents handled challenges can inspire creative thinking.
True. For English learners, here's a phrase you can use when reflecting on these lessons: take inspiration from. For example, I take inspiration from my ancestors' hard work and perseverance.
That's such a useful phrase. And here's another angle: heritage also shapes how we view risk-taking. Some cultures encourage bold decisions, while others emphasize caution and planning.
Exactly. Both approaches can be forms of intelligence. Calculated risks often lead to innovation, while careful planning ensures stability.
And here's a quick vocabulary tip. If you're describing someone who takes risks wisely, you can call them pragmatic. It means being practical and realistic while aiming for results.
Good one, Katharina. And speaking of pragmatism, how about the way heritage influences work ethic? Some cultures deeply value discipline and persistence.
Totally. That cultural emphasis on hard work becomes part of how people approach challenges, shaping their success.
And let's not forget the role of rituals in maintaining focus. Something as simple as a morning tea ceremony can teach mindfulness.
Yes, and mindfulness itself is a cognitive skill. It helps people process emotions and make better decisions.
Which ties back to emotional intelligence. Heritage doesn't just shape how we think, it influences how we feel and interact with others.
Exactly. And emotional intelligence is such a key part of success, whether in personal relationships or professional settings.
For sure. And for listeners, here's another English expression: emotional resilience. It means being able to recover quickly from setbacks. Like, heritage often fosters emotional resilience through shared values and traditions.
Perfect example, Marco. And isn't it amazing how interconnected everything is? From storytelling to rituals to history, heritage constantly feeds into intelligence.
It really does. It's like an endless feedback loop, each generation adding new layers while building on the past.
Speaking of adding layers, I think languages themselves are a perfect example of that feedback loop. They evolve, picking up new words, phrases, and meanings from every generation.
Absolutely. And heritage plays a huge role in shaping how languages develop. Take loanwords, for instance, words borrowed from one language and incorporated into another. It's a reflection of cultural exchange.
True, like the word kindergarten, which comes from German, or bazaar, which has Persian origins. It's fascinating how these words carry little pieces of history with them.
And for English learners, understanding the roots of words can boost vocabulary. For example, knowing that bazaar means a market can help connect it to words like marketplace or emporium.
That's a great tip. And it reminds me how idioms often come from cultural heritage too. Like the phrase, "don't cry over spilled milk." It reflects values of acceptance and moving forward.
Exactly. Idioms are like cultural snapshots. They show what a society values or struggles with. And for learners, using idioms can make your English sound more natural and relatable.
Here's another one. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's a way to say someone is similar to their parents, whether in behavior, intelligence, or values.
Oh, that's a classic. And it ties back to how intelligence and traits are often inherited or influenced by upbringing.
Right. And that brings us to the role of environment. Even with inherited traits, how we're raised and the society we live in shapes how those traits develop.
Absolutely. It's like the nature versus nurture debate. Both heritage and practice are essential. And for English learners, here's a phrase to describe this balance, a blend of factors. You can use it to explain complex ideas, like, success is often a blend of factors, including hard work, heritage, and opportunity.
I love that! And let's not forget how modern technology interacts with heritage. It's preserving traditions in ways we never imagined, like digital archives, language learning apps, or online cultural exchanges.
That's such an interesting point. Technology has become a bridge between heritage and the future, ensuring that traditional knowledge doesn't get lost in today's fast-paced world.
Exactly. And it also makes it easier for people to reconnect with their roots, no matter where they are in the world.
Heritage, then, isn't just about the past. It's alive, growing, and shaping intelligence in ways we're still discovering. So, at the end of the day, it's clear that heritage and intelligence are deeply interconnected. Heritage isn't just about preserving the past, it's a living, breathing force that shapes how we think, feel, and grow.
Exactly, Marco. It teaches us resilience, creativity, and emotional strength while connecting us to the wisdom of generations before us. And when combined with practice and modern innovation, it becomes a powerful tool for personal and collective growth.
For our listeners, here's the takeaway. Don't underestimate the value of your heritage. Whether it's the stories you've heard, the traditions you've followed, or even the language you speak, it all contributes to your unique intelligence.
And remember, intelligence isn't one size fits all. It's diverse, just like heritage. Embrace both to unlock your full potential. After all, they're two sides of the same coin, shaping you into who you are and who you're meant to be.
Well said, Katharina. And for our learners, keep exploring new ideas, learning new expressions, and connecting with your roots. Let your heritage and practice guide you toward new heights.
Because every step you take in learning and self-discovery adds to the legacy you'll leave behind.
What a thought to end on. Thank you, listeners, for joining us on this fascinating journey.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Podcast Center. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What's one way your heritage has shaped your perspective?
And as always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the beauty of language and culture. See you next time.
Happy learning, everyone!